All right, let's get this talk started. I am Marcy Schoenborn of ShowFit. I am a holistic nutritionist specializing in cellular nutrition, and I've been coming on weekly to talk about different health topics. And so if you've not seen the other talks, you can reach out to me. I can make sure that you see them. We've covered a lot of topics already. Today, the topic is mood matters and understanding the link between nutrition, depression, and anxiety. And I'm going to unpack a lot of really good information in all of that and keep it in very, very simple terms. And this is an educational talk. I want to point that out. And before we even get into the talk, I thought I would tell a story about my familiarity with depression because I don't want anyone to think in any way I'm belittling depression in anything that I say. I grew up with a mother that had, it was called clinical depression. And for the longest time, I thought there was something different from clinical depression and food-related depression once they discovered a few decades ago, that food is the culprit. And once I started studying cellular nutrition and understanding how the body breaks down and the fuel that the gut needs, I could completely see why my mother had depression. She followed Weight Watchers for as long as I can remember and got hooked on the whole steak and cottage cheese every night. And maybe on occasion she ate green beans. Maybe I saw her eat an apple on the weekend. I would go to breakfast with her. She loved to go out to eat. And it was always sausage and eggs and potatoes and, whole wheat toast, because whole wheat toast is better, right? But she didn't put any foods that were gut healing into her body, or not enough of them to matter. She had way more foods in her body that were causing issues than healing. And on top of that, decades of eating this way. And she drank an 8-pack of caffeine-free Diet Pepsi a day and very little water. So, and I'm not exaggerating at all. That is what she lived on. And so now I can entirely see why she had depression, anxiety, didn't handle stress well, and the long list of other diseases that I thought were my heredity. And I've been able to fight them because of the way that I eat. So I am very familiar with depression. When I was 19, I came home from work and actually was confronted with her asking me if I would forgive her if she committed suicide. So I had my own dealings emotionally with it. I didn't understand it because I've always been very optimistic, very positive, very I love life, and didn't understand why she didn't. And now I understand her so much better. So, but what if we could eat, what we eat could help us feel more emotionally stable, less anxious, and more energized? Because science shows and statistics and my clients show that it can. So first we're going to talk about understanding depression and anxiety. And so without going too deep into medical jargon, I want to keep this super simple. So depression is more than just feeling sad or having a rough day. It can show up as low mood, fatigue, changes in sleep or appetite, loss of interest in things you used to enjoy, or just a general sense of heaviness or hopelessness. It's like your brain is stuck in low gear. And friends, I think we can all go through this at some times in our life, but if we're eating well and taking care of our health, we don't live there. We don't unpack and move in there, right? It's just maybe a day. Personally, for me, it's like a moment, and then I give myself a checkup from the neck up, and often I will eat a handful of blueberries, help reset my brain, and get on with my day and get on with my, pull up my bootstraps. And so anxiety, on the other hand, often feels like being constantly on edge. It can show up as racing thoughts, restlessness, trouble sleeping, or even physical symptoms like a racing heart or digestive issues, People with anxiety often describe it as feeling like something bad is about to happen, even when there's no clear reason why. So here's the important thing. These are incredibly common experiences, and they don't look the same for everybody. Some people feel them intensely, others mildly, but they still impact daily life. And the sad fact is they didn't used to be common. What has changed? Food. And it's not all of a sudden, but when you look at each generation being born less healthy, as we have been poisoned over the decades, and now we are raising children that have never not eaten processed poison food. This is why genetics can be blamed, but is it genetics or how we learn to eat in the house we grow up in? What's also important to understand is that depression and anxiety aren't caused by just one thing. They're what we call multifactorial. That means biology plays a role, our genetics, hormones, and brain chemistry, but so do our environment, our stress levels, our sleep, movement, relationships, and yes, our food. So in fact, the rates of depression and anxiety have been steadily rising across all age groups. Excuse me. Teenagers, adults, even older adults are feeling this more than ever. Some of that has to do with modern life. Constant stimulation, poor sleep, chronic stress, social isolation, but nutrition is the most important piece of the puzzle that often gets overlooked. And, you know, I started out saying teenagers, adults, even older adults, but I see it in kiddos. I see angry 5-year-olds coming into church. I teach Sunday school. I see, stressed out, anxiety. I hear from the mamas, can't sleep. The children have anxiety. It's food. It shouldn't be happening. So most people don't realize that the brain is actually one of the most nutrient-hungry organs in the body. The food we eat can either support the brain's ability to regulate mood, or it can throw it off balance. So if you've ever wondered why your mood swings more on certain days, why you feel wired but tired, or why your anxiety flares up without warning, it's worth considering what's happening on your plate, not just in your mind. That's what this talk is about, understanding the connection between nutrition and mental wellness, and how small shifts in what we put in our bodies can help us feel more emotionally stable, more focused, and even more hopeful. So now that we've talked about how common depression and anxiety are, let's explore something that doesn't get nearly enough attention: how what we eat affects how we feel, mentally and emotionally. So how does the brain use nutrients? Your brain is an incredibly complex organ. It controls everything: your thoughts, emotions, memory, focus, sleep, and stress response. But to do that well, it needs the right fuel. Everything in our body needs the right fuel, which I often call tools, to do its job. Our body was designed to do this job. Stress and all of these other feelings we can feel were designed for a reason, but they weren't supposed to be constant. They were supposed to be a signal. Depression should be a signal. Anxiety should be a signal. Stress should be a signal. Should not be our mainstay. So specifically, your brain uses nutrients from food to make chemicals called neurotransmitters. And these include serotonin, which includes regulate mood and sleep, dopamine, which plays a big role in motivation and pleasure, GABA, which acts like the brakes in your nervous system to calm anxiety and stress. These chemicals don't just appear out of thin air. They're built from amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats. And I want to be very clear, healthy fats do not come from animal fats. I've had many people ask me recently, what animal fats do I use? And if I'm eating animal protein, I'm eating the fat in that protein, but I don't do any added animal fats. That is not where we get good body healing, brain healing fats from. So without the right building blocks, the brain can't make or balance them properly. So when people are eating highly processed diets, skipping meals, or following restrictive eating plans that leave out key nutrients like fruits and vegetables, seeds, nuts, and beans that the gut needs to fuel the brain, their brains are essentially running on empty. We're going to talk about the gut-brain axis. This brings us to a really fascinating part of the story. So you might have heard the gut referred to as the second brain, and that's not just a catchy phrase. Your gut is lined with nerve cells and is in constant communication with your brain through a network called the vagus nerve. Not only that, but around 90% of your serotonin, that mood stabilizing chemical, is actually made in the gut. And it turns out a big part of that process is influenced by the gut microbiome. The trillions of bacteria living in your digestive tract. So about 37 trillion bacteria live in your digestive tract. When the gut is inflamed, when it's missing key nutrients, or when the microbiome is imbalanced from things like antibiotics, high sugar diets, or chronic stress, it can directly affect how we feel mentally. People often describe this as brain fog, mood swings, irritability, or just feeling off. And if you missed the talk last week, we talked about brain fog. So here's the kicker. Many popular diets today actually limit the very nutrients that support gut healing and mental clarity. Diets that cut out fiber, healthy fats, fermented foods, or diverse plant nutrients might lead to short-term results on the scale, but in the long run, they can contribute to worsening depression, anxiety, and energy crashes. Chemicals designed to help. So we're going to talk briefly about medications because many people rely on them, and there's no shame in that. I like to make it very clear, I never tell anyone to go off medication. I can't do that legally. But when people eat on my plan and then they get better results with their doctor, with their blood work, with their testing, they are often taken off their medication. And some are taken off all of it, some are taken off maybe 80%. And this matters because you're saving your kidneys and your liver. You are adding life to your kidneys and liver when you can lower your medications. But again, that should never be done by yourself, always done by your doctor. So antidepressants like SSRIs or anti-anxiety medications like benzodiazepines. My clients get to watch me trip over words all the time, so no shame in my game. They are designed to increase or stabilize neurotransmitters in the brain like serotonin or GABA. They can be extremely helpful for many people, especially during crisis periods. But there's something important. Medications don't create neurotransmitters out of thin air. They're just helping your brain use what's already there. So if your body isn't getting the nutrients it needs to make those chemicals in the first place, medications might not work as well as they could. Think of it like trying to run a car without gas. No matter how good the engine is, it needs fuel. That's where nutrition can come in, not as a replacement, but as a support system. It can help the body create and regulate those mood balancing chemicals naturally and sustainably. And so your brain is not separate from the rest of your body. It's fueled by the food you eat, connected directly to your gut, and highly sensitive to inflammation, nutrient levels, and digestive health. When you start giving it what it needs, the difference in how you feel mentally, emotionally, and physically can be life-changing. And that's exactly why I created a program to support people who are ready to make that shift in a way that's realistic and very personal. So now we're going to talk about something you've seen on food labels, or maybe you haven't. I know I saw it even today in a post in something that RFK is trying to take care of and change, and that is the GRAS status, generally recognized as safe. And it's often hidden behind confusing ingredient names. But this term was created back in 1958. So when I say we've been being poisoned for a long time, I'm not exaggerating. When Congress amended the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act to allow certain food additives to bypass extensive safety testing. as long as they were considered safe by experts under the conditions of their intended use. But what people don't understand is who those experts are. Food companies hire their own experts. There should still have to be third-party testing. My tiny little supplement company has third-party testing. I won't run it any other way. And so it might sound reassuring that this act was passed. I know a lot of people trust in all of that stuff, but generally recognized as safe. Here's what you need to know. It's simply a legal status, not a health guarantee. And it means that the food companies were allowed to self-regulate. And so when you get profit-mongering companies, you get a problem. And so it simply means the FDA is determined based on available evidence that a substance is unlikely to cause immediate harm in small amounts. It doesn't mean it's healthy. It doesn't mean it's beneficial. And it certainly doesn't mean it supports your brain or emotional well-being. Over the decades, thousands of substances have been added to our food supply under the GRAS label, including preservatives, artificial dyes, flavor enhancers, emulsifiers, and other additives that help food stay on shelves longer or taste more appealing. And it's not even about the taste. Certainly they want it to taste pleasant, but the tastes are designed even to trick our brain and addict us and make us want more of those foods. And so here's the catch. These additives weren't tested for long-term impact on mental health, gut function, or mood regulation. And while yes, today's talk is about mental health and depression and anxiety, gut function is the root of all health concerns. So in fact, many were approved before we even understood the gut-brain connection or how nutrition affects things like serotonin and dopamine. So let's be real. Just because something won't kill you doesn't mean it's helping you. And here's the thing. It doesn't kill you on the spot, but it is killing you. If it's creating a disease that is debilitating you, requiring medication, causing you to struggle in life, that is killing you softly, killing you slowly, however you want to look at it. A food dye may be safe in terms of not causing cancer in a lab rat, but it might still contribute to hyperactivity, brain fog, or low mood. And keep in mind, the buildup of these chemicals our body doesn't recognize from food, water, air we breathe, medications, chemicals we put on our body, and more. So we're all doing that all day, every day. They all amplify the issues and make our organs overwork. So saying it's just a little bit, maybe if you're splurging on, some kind of processed food that is full of chemicals and you're saying it's just a little bit, stack that on to just a little bit of everything else you've done to your body that day. A preservative might extend shelf life, but it might also increase inflammation in the gut, which, like we talked about earlier, can impact anxiety and depression. So there's a big gap between safe to eat and supportive of mental wellness. Safe to eat might mean it won't kill you on the spot. The food industry is primarily focused on profit, not brain health, not any kind of health. So we have to become our own best advocates when it comes to what we put in our bodies, especially if we're struggling with mood, focus, sleep, or energy. And I'm not here to tell you to be afraid of food, but to be aware. Many people feel tired, anxious, or emotionally unstable and never realize that the GRAS approved ultra-processed foods they're eating every day might be part of the problem. The good news is you can take your power back. And that's exactly what I help people do in my nutrition program. Understand the difference between what's safe and what's actually supportive for your brain, body, mood, and life. So we've talked about how the brain works, how the gut is connected, and how not all food labeled safe is necessarily helpful. Now let's shift into something empowering, because the good news is that nutrition has enormous potential to support mental wellness. It's not magic, but it is powerful when you understand how it works. Stabilizing blood sugar. One of the simplest but most underrated ways nutrition impacts mood is through blood sugar stability. When blood sugar spikes, like after a sugary breakfast or long periods of not eating, it causes a surge in energy followed by a crash. That crash can look like irritability, anxiety, brain fog, or even feelings of hopelessness. Stabilizing blood sugar with balanced meals, meaning the right mix of protein, fat, and fiber. And when I say fiber, I'm talking fruits and vegetables. Helps keep energy and mood more consistent throughout the day. No more highs and lows emotionally, just steady ground to stand on. So when we eat a meal, we shouldn't feel like going down and taking a nap, going to lay down and take a nap right after we consume a meal. We should feel energized. We shouldn't have a tummy ache. Tummy aches are not normal. Tummy aches are telling your body something's wrong with your gut, along with IBS symptoms, diarrhea and constipation. Those are not normal in daily life, daily health. And even when it does happen on occasion, you should look at, what did I just eat? What did I eat yesterday? Because not only is it tearing up your gut, it's by causing you maybe to run to the bathroom or not be able to go for a few days, that is going to mess with your brain. Reducing inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation has been linked to both depression and anxiety in many studies and a list of many of our top debilitating diseases. The food we eat can either calm or fuel that fire. Highly processed foods, refined sugars, and poor quality fats tend to increase inflammation, while whole, nutrient-dense foods like certain vegetables, healthy fats, and antioxidant-rich options help reduce it. When inflammation is lower, the brain communicates more clearly, and people often report clearer thinking, better sleep, and less reactivity to stress. Supporting neurotransmitter synthesis. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth repeating. Your brain needs raw materials to produce mood-regulating chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. These raw materials come from nutrients in food, amino acids, B vitamins, magnesium, omega-3s, and more. If we're not getting enough of these, whether from a restrictive diet, poor absorption, or just lack of variety, it can show up as mood swings, low motivation, poor sleep, and anxious thoughts. With the right nourishment, though, people often feel their brain start to wake up again. Promoting better sleep and energy. Nutrition also plays a big role in how well we sleep, which directly affects mood. Foods that regulate blood sugar and support calming neurotransmitters help us fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. On the flip side, things like caffeine late in the day, alcohol, or poor quality meals can disrupt sleep and leave us feeling drained the next day. And when we're well rested and nourished, we have more resilience to handle stress, more clarity to make decisions, and more emotional steadiness overall. Honoring bio-individuality. Now I want to be very clear. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to using nutrition to support mental wellness. We all have different genetics, health histories, gut health, stress levels, and lifestyles. What helps one person feel calmer and more balanced might not work the same way for someone else, and that's okay. That's exactly why personalized guidance is so important. Not to overwhelm you, but to give you a starting point that's built around you, not a fad or a trend. So to sum it up, nutrition is not a cure-all, but it is the critical missing piece for many people dealing with depression, anxiety, fatigue, and emotional ups and downs. When you learn how to nourish your body, your brain and body the right way, things can shift. You can start to feel more like yourself again. And that's what my nutrition program is all about. Helping you take the guesswork out of eating for your mental well-being, for your well-being across the board. So by now you've probably realized that nutrition can play a much bigger role in your mental health than most people ever talked about. But here's the thing, it's not always easy to know where to start. There's so much information out there. Some of it is helpful, some of it is confusing, and honestly, some of it is just flat out wrong. From social media influencers to fad diets to conflicting advice from every angle, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Or worse, to try something that leaves you feeling worse than before. And that's why I want to talk about the importance of having a structured, supportive, and science-based program, especially when you're dealing with something as personal as your mental and physical health. Because what works for one person might not work for you. Your body, your brain, your history, your goals, they are unique, and they deserve a customized approach. This is exactly why I created my nutrition program. To help people take what we've talked about today, gut health, blood sugar balance, inflammation, nutrient support, and actually apply it in a way that's safe, sustainable, and personal. What makes this program different is that it's not just about one piece of the puzzle. We offer a comprehensive, complete program that covers all aspects of your health. Physical, mental, emotional, and even lifestyle habits that influence everything from stress to sleep and energy. We guide you step by step so you're not doing it alone. You'll have education, support, and tools tailored to you, not some generic meal plan pulled from the internet. And so now, just to be clear, this whole thing is not just a sales pitch, and there's no pressure to join me. This is a free talk because I want people to understand that they have options and that real support is out there. But if you're someone who's been struggling with your mood, your energy, or your overall health, and you're tired of trying to figure it out on your own, I invite you to reach out. I would love to talk to you about whether this program might be a fit for you. Whether you're ready now or just curious to learn more, I'd love to connect and support you however I can. If you have questions, you can DM me, you can comment below. I'll be checking all the comments. If you want to get on my schedule, I'm happy to talk about times that I have available. If you have a loved one that you think could benefit from this talk, please share this with them. Have a great night. I'm really glad you were here, and be blessed.